So I'm here with Bethany Cook, and she's going to tell us what an empath is.
I think to talk about what an empath is, it's important to talk about what energy is first, and why people identify heavily with an empath over other psychics. So if you think about energy and you think about emotion is just energy in motion. So when you're sensing an energy and then you have a feeling, the feeling is the energy acting within you, whereas the energy is outside of you. But once it's in you and you're absorbing it, becomes emotion. So people that are empaths are just picking up energy and feeling it. That's important to know. So an empath is someone who experiences energy on an emotional level. So they'll feel the energy in a room or of an item or of a person or of an animal, and then they'll feel it within themselves as an emotion. And this can be confusing because it can feel like it's your own emotion when really it could be the energy of anything if you're not careful.
Well put. So, to excuse me, to clarify a little bit, empathy exists on the far left of a spectrum between empathy and narcissism. Narcissist is a word that gets overused a lot. Everyone has empathetic and narcissistic traits unless you are in fact a narcissist. But we're talking about people who are more hypersensitive. So let me ask you, Beth, for one who is sensitive, people talk a lot about being overwhelmed by other people's emotions. What's that about?
Those type of people would be very sensitive to energies around them. And then if they don't know how to identify their own versus other people's, it can be very overwhelming because you could just have this sense of something and if you don't know it's not coming from you, it can make you question a lot of things about yourself unnecessarily, or question about anything in the moment, the people you're around, or really anything you could be picking up from. So it's very important to understand what's yours and what's not. That's probably the hardest thing for an empath to do because it hits them so strongly that it's hard to say, if it's your feeling or if it's something else. Are you being sensitive about something in your life, or are you picking up something from the room or from a person or from an object? It could really be anything. But knowing how to take a second and center and ground yourself and then feel what's yours is the easiest way to identify the difference, and to be authentic, to know what your authentic needs and wants and energies are, so that when you feel something else, you can say, that's not me. That's definitely not me. And then you can understand why you're feeling it, or if there's something that you should be doing about it or not be doing about it, but know that it's not yours.
So, if you identify something as not stemming from yourself, what do you do about it?
That's definitely up to the individual. It depends on what you want. You could use that to be, that kind of understanding can be used negatively and be very manipulative, because you understand people and you understand energies and you understand what's being put out, so you can respond accordingly and put out something different. Or you can use that to deepen your kindness and care for other people and other things and respond accordingly. Someone's upset, so you can comfort them, or someone's angry, so you know how to snap them out of it or make them laugh, or you understand that the energy in a room is a little antsy, so maybe crack a joke to lighten the load. It could be anything. Depends on the individual.
Personally, I subscribe to radical compassion and radical candor. Essentially just means trying to give people what they need, whether it tastes sweet or sour, assertive or soft. It's contextually and situationally specific.
Absolutely.
If one wanted to protect themselves from any kind of energetic bombardment, or let me put it in layman's terms, how do you protect yourself from other people's bullshit?
Do not interact with people.
Or you'll get the corona.
Exactly. Definitely the safest, easiest way is to know what is yours first, which can be very hard for people, especially if they have a softer personality and they're receptive to these kind of energies. It's going to be very easy for them to be pushed over by these energies. But taking a second to really understand what's yours is really the easiest way to protect yourself, and understand what your energy is and what your energy wants. So especially now when everybody's at home, this is a great time to really think about that fourth house stuff. When you're at home, what's around in your home? Does it support your authenticity? Does it speak to your real truth? And if it doesn't, then this is the time to really renovate that and start at the base. So if you understand your home, you understand your environment that you're in every single day, this space that's yours, and it's not speaking your truth, then you need to change that so your foundation is yours and it's you. And then if it is speaking your truth, then have it be a reminder so that when you are feeling other things, you can be reminded in the space of who is you if you need to, or bring that piece of you around.
When Beth mentions the fourth house, she doesn't mean the fourth house you own. She means the astrological fourth house, which is the house of home.
And as a Cancer with the moon in the fourth, I think I can speak about the fourth house.
Well, you can cry about it. I'm sorry.
Sometimes. When I'm alone.
Seeing that everybody is now stuck indoors or soon to be, and when they close all the businesses, we're all going to be spending a lot of time with a couple close friends or family, pets, kids. We're all going to be essentially isolated to some extent. So I want to ask, who are you when no one's around? There are only so many shows on Netflix. Depending on how long this lasts, you may or may not run out. If you do, and you run out of distractions or anchors, who the hell are you? Something I wanted to put out there was Zappa's Cosmic Panic, which gets brought up in his work, The Last Messiah. We're not going to follow that work to its end point, but he was heavily influenced by Nietzsche and essentially puts forth the idea that we're all suffering from cosmic panic. It's very close to... It's another form of the existential crisis, essentially. There are ways we handle it, either via isolation, anchoring to a job, friends, family, purpose, plan. Then we deal with it through distractions. And sometimes we deal with it through sublimation, where you take on a creative outlet to express those feelings. I bring up cosmic panic because some of you may soon feel it. Some of you may soon also feel some tension being stuck either by yourself or with somebody else in your house without places to go. So it's kind of important to know what's yours and what isn't, and what to do with all those wonderfully dark feelings that may get drummed up. Maybe they won't. They probably will.
But all that really has to do with what I was talking about with the authentic self too. Understanding, who you are when no one is around is who you are, your truth, your authentic self. And knowing who that person is and always putting out that person is how you're going to know the difference, how to separate, or how to deal with the energies that are around you, or how you want to deal with the energies around you. How could be like, you could know somebody's upset, but you know that they're kind of being a brat. So do you be compassionate in the kind of standard way that people think of compassion, or are you going to tell them that they're being a brat? which is also compassionate in its own way.
You use the compassionate frying pan. Go on.
So it's like ruthless compassion and being nice.
Like that. Ruthless compassion. Feels good.
Mm-hmm. Kelly.
Ha! That's right. Another thing to bring up is toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing. Unfortunately, it's something that tends to go hand in hand with empathetic folks or people who consider themselves empaths or intuitive people. I would probably say there's probably more spiritual bypassing than there isn't. Spiritual bypassing is when someone says, you have bad energy. Or, you're toxic, you're toxic, you're toxic, you're toxic. Everything is toxic. I'm not toxic. Everything around me is toxic, or these people are toxic. I don't want any toxicity touching me, so I'm just going to put my hands up. And I would say, if you are actively showing compassion and empathy, and there's no toxicity around you, then you're not actively showing shit. Or it's falling on deaf ears and it's going to places that are just really inconsequential. To label something as toxic and run away from it is only reserved for extreme situations. Everybody has baggage and everyone has bullshit. Being balanced isn't about avoiding toxicity in your life. It's about dealing with it appropriately. If someone or something can be helped, then you try to help. The breaking point or stopping point of that help is when it starts debilitating you. If it starts debilitating you and throwing you off balance to the point where you're losing a foothold on yourself, that's too much. If you can't remain balanced, then you can't help anyone else. If you're afraid of the negativity of others, then you can't help anyone either. There's an element of courage, there's an element of patience, an element of understanding. All of it needs to be utilized. Is this toxicity too much for me to handle? And is that because you lack the capability to handle it, or is it because they are too toxic to receive any kind of aid? Questions to consider. Your ball.
I think the spiritual bypassing is something that I see a lot with like people who identify as light workers. And I know that I was one of those people a few years back. But looking into those people and looking at what they're doing, they want to spread kindness. They want to spread light. They want to help people. But if you're not willing to handle someone's darkness, how can you help them at all? Or if you're not willing to meet somebody where they need help, how can you really help them at all? It's just kind of brightening a couple people's day in passing, but not really helping them heal at all.
Medicine only works on the sick. So when someone takes on too much negativity, is there some kind of like pink Himalayan salt bath they can give themselves with fresh herbs from I was going to say a particular oil brand, but I don't know if I can actually mention that and publish the video. So I won't.
I think if people are getting overwhelmed or they're taking on too much, the best thing that they can do is just take a second back and take a day to themselves and remind themselves who they are when no one is around, who is their authentic self. Once they answer that, then they can then identify what is overwhelming them and how it's overwhelming them. And then from there you have your problem. And then you can only do 3 things with the problem at that point. And you have to decide which you're going to do or when it's time to stop doing one of those. And that's to change it, to accept it, or to leave it. And that's it. There's nothing else. You can try to change it and change it and change it, but once you are still getting overwhelmed, still having these feelings from it, then the changing isn't working. So you have to accept that this is a part of this, whatever this is, or accept that it's too much for you, and walk away. It's time to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
People get stuck on the change and the possibilities, but if you're exhausting yourself, if you're still in this havoc every single day, then the change is not the one that you need. At least not in that way.
Well put. You're the little pitter-patter of dog feet. So, continuing with this theme, at some point this should probably be its own video, but light and shadow. Anything true translates. Anything true in physical reality, take it as a metaphor in regards to spirituality, in regards to emotions, the way the world works is the way the world works. The spiritual, the supernatural mirrors the natural. So, with that said, the greater the light, the greater the source of light, the greater the shadow. If you're surrounded by a lot of shadows, you may not be doing anything wrong at all. In fact, when you're on the right track, generally it upsets the apple cart. It starts with the people you are closest to, because as you change, it mirrors a choice for other people to change. Again, like those people closest to you. As you grow, they have a choice to see that growth, or if they're using you as a stabilizing element, can not want you to change. They will keep seeing you as the same thing because some part of them needs to, as an anchoring point of sorts. But the light and shadow, the relationship between the two. If you remain dim, you will not upset the apple cart. You will not be seeing shadows. As soon as that flame starts growing higher, you will indeed see growing shadows. And if you find yourself surrounded by them, it may be a good idea not to go it alone. A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle, and 2 light sources are better than 1. Not to speak in extreme terms, but think about it as like a spiritual war of sorts for like the soul of a culture. You have most people who want to be good or want to do good. Anybody who's compassionate, kind, anyone who is spiritually inclined wants to be positive. They want to be good, but a lot of them go it alone or choose not to. They opt out of the fight. They opt out of the war. It's like, oh my God, it's a shadow. Then they run away. And if you've ever run, if you've ever ran anywhere on a sunny day, one thing you can count on is that your shadow will fucking follow you because it's not going anywhere. And if you find it following you, then you know you're not the source of light. Something else to consider. It's important to try to be a source of light. It's important to find partnership in that as well. I'm sitting here with Bethany. In case I say anything really offensive, it will come down on her as well. And it will be easier for me to bear the burden because she'll have to deal with half of it. You see how it works? You get it? That and she knows some shit. But if you find yourself a source of light, as a source of light, expect shadows. That's how it's supposed to be. Am I still holding any continuity with this?
I think so.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay.
think it's easy to follow. I think the shadow has a lot to do with the authentic self and the self at home too, though.
Of course.
Because that's where it could hide for a lot of people when they're at home, and then they have to sit with themselves. And then they're reminded of their shadow and its place and its presence, and people can like get stuck in it and drink it in too far because they're just sitting in their own energies too much.
Cosmic panic.
Exactly. But understanding who your shadow is, or what your actual shadow is going to help you be your own most authentic self too. Because all lights have shadows, so there's no escaping it completely. You can't. But your shadow can actually help you in a lot of different ways. No one gives better advice than the opposite of you, right?
I wish I were as skinny as my shadow. Tall and lanky and stretches for miles. On some days.
Just Sundays?
Some days.
Oh.
No, not on Sundays. It's sleep-in day.
It's not the holy day?
Speaking of holy and holes, the term of the planet, how to pronounce the planet is Uranus. But for the sake of comedy, we're going to call this section Uranus and the Hole, and what to do with it. Your role in the hole, and taking an assertive approach. So, you may find people posting a lot about things like Mercury retrograde. It seems to be the thing now. But in astrology, there are inner planets and outer planets. And outer planets represent a higher octave of inner planets. They share similar qualities. Those similar qualities to a planet like cerebral Mercury would be Uranus, which is higher thought, higher intelligence, and a higher application of it. I want to talk about the Uranian standard because it fits in to all the aforementioned. The idea of I can't even say that. Can you say that for me?
An idea of a Uranian.
It's a little tough. Wait, no, I got this. The idea of a Uranian standard is about setting the bar in your life and your relationships. It's about setting a new bar. Imagine, if you can, a staircase. Say you're 10 steps up, and you're speaking to somebody who is 3 steps down from you. The Uranian standard considers where you are in the staircase, where other people are on the staircase, who you can reach down and try to pull up, who's too far down, and who you can reach up to. No one is a lost cause. Let me say that. But the further you bend down to reach and trying to lift someone else up, the less balance you have. It's always a person's individual choice whether to try. But if somebody is 5 steps down and you are leaning and reaching as hard as you can and you have virtually no balance, what's going to happen? Beth, please tell them.
You're gonna fall.
Exactly, you're going to fall. If there is somebody next to you, maybe the two of you or more can help try to pull that person up another step. Maybe. You may still not have enough leverage. Sometimes, if somebody is only a couple steps down, maybe you can pull them up yourself. Maybe you need to reach upward or reach next to you for support, stability. No one's going at this alone, but everyone has personal choice to make in when to reach how far to reach, and the danger or lack thereof of reaching. And all of that starts with understanding where you are on the staircase. Now, I'm speaking in metaphor. To bring this into a more specific application, when we talk about the staircase or Uranian standard, what that actually is making a commitment of sorts. It's when you set the bar in a specific way. Whether it's about the kind of conversations you want to have, about the things you want to do, the relationships you want to have. That might be a very easy one for people to understand. It's saying that there's specific caliber of something that I want to exist at, that I want to achieve, that I want to live at. Because I am aware of it, I will not live below it. It's making a commitment to setting the bar where you personally need it to be. And then having the courage to look at the things around you and see and figure out where everything else sits in relation to it. So that bar you set is a point on the staircase. And you have to be very honest about where you are and where that point on the staircase is. And then be very honest about where the people around you and the things around you are on that staircase as well. That will give you an idea of how to live the way you want to be living and include those who you can. I mean, there are those you're going to want to include, and there are those that can be included. It doesn't mean you have to cut people out of your life, but if your time, the bulk of your time, and time is the only currency, it is all important. The bulk of your time should be spent with things in and around that standard. It's about creating the reality you want to live in and not living below it. You have to establish it. And then you can really reach your hand up and say, hey, help me come up a stair. But you need to establish a foundation in order to rise. And that entails figuring out where you are on the staircase, setting that bar, whether it's relationships, whether it's your job, whether it's what kinds of activities you do, whether it's your hobbies. Like, it's about not settling. It's about considering who you are, who you actually are, where you actually are, and where you want to be, and living in the world that you want to live in, not just settling for what you think you can have. It was a bit redundant, but thoughts?
Even in psychology, there's an equivalent. So life is always about growth and learning, at least it should be. And that's to do with that standard. And when you maybe reach another stair or like hit a maturity spike, you mature past something, you're going to have this sense of loss, and that's totally natural. Because you have to let go of things. You have to let go of all those things, people, places, hobbies, jobs, all different things, not because you don't like them, but because they're not serving your highest truth anymore. And it's natural to gravitate away from things as you mature. So maybe you take a step up and then you realize how much further down those other things are, and that you cannot continue moving forward and up if you're holding so much down. It's a natural process.
Stuff can become a yoke around your neck.
Mm-hmm.
The higher up on the staircase you go, the heavier the luggage is going to feel. Or the baggage, I should say.
Especially if it's stuck too low and it's not being responsible for itself, so it's not moving itself either. And those are really the things that you're going to need to gravitate away from and need to cut off. Not because you don't like them, not because you don't want them to grow, but because your personal growth is being hindered by their stubbornness to not grow themselves. Everybody's responsible for themselves. You can't push people along in life. They have to do it themselves, or it won't go anywhere. They'll just stay.
When you lean into change, it feels like growth. When you resist it, it feels like something's dying. It feels like it feels like loss. So the only way to curb the feeling of loss is by leaning into change.
Yes, that's the point of life, is change and growth and moving forward, not staying stuck. As you raise yourself up, you raise the people around you, even in ways that you won't know, even without directly interacting with them, just because they, like, using your metaphor still, the staircase, like maybe someone below sees you up there and it's like, wow, I want to get up there. I wonder how I could get up there. And just that motivation is enough to make them start moving without you even doing anything. So it's worth it to always keep moving.
Just for the sake of this video, and to toy with one of the people who's going to be watching the video, I'm going to call this ascendance up the staircase the Colin Pappendick method. Do you know what a Colin Pappendick is?
I do, a little.
Yeah. Because that's what he did, and you should too. Since this is going to be an eclectic video, because I'm too lazy to do this in segments, way too lazy, and these can only be done once in a while. Maybe that'll change now that there's nowhere to go and nothing to do. But these are tarot cards. You may be asking yourself, what the hell's a tarot card? Tarot's a visual language of symbols, including various philosophies, including various divination systems contained within it. There are a lot of symbols in a tarot card. So, I'm going to talk about the Emperor. I'm going to teach you about this today. In the tarot, there are 22, I hate to even say this word right now, trumps, called trump cards.
Major Arcana.
Thank you. Feels icky. I should take that word back. Excuse me. They are extremely important in the deck. The Emperor is number 4. Some quick definitions of the card might say something like authoritarian figure, father figure, something to that effect. But that is rarely the case. But I should add, the definition of a tarot card is not subjective. The only part that's subjective is interpreting the qualities defined by the cards that flank it. By flank it, I mean cards on either side of it. Those are going to tell you specific things about this and pull specific things out of this. How you interpret those specific things is subjective, but the specific things themselves are not. There will be specific, unchanging qualities of the card based on what's next to it. But to get into this archetype, the Emperor leads by governing. And the Emperor's form of governing by taking care of the people and institutions which surround it. So if you were to get a reading and somebody pulled the Emperor for Beth, though it's a great card to have, Beth, you are accountable and you are responsible for things around you and people. With power can come authority, but with power comes accountability and responsibility. And it's the Emperor's job to know what people need. Let's try an example. Beth makes the same mistake over and over again. She comes over crying, talks about the mistake she makes. And I might want to say, like, this time she's particularly devastated. Part of me might want to say, well, stop doing the same fucking thing over and over again. Are you crazy? Here's your medicine. Stop. Don't do it. But say this, whatever the repeating pattern is, has broken her self-esteem. Me saying things in that way is not good medicine. There's a time and place to be assertive, a time and place to be soft, and the Emperor knows the distinction, considering the context of things in which people are responding to. If Beth's self-esteem is broken, I may say something like, look, you know this has happened before, and I know you don't want it to happen again. You deserve more, or you deserve better. It's a lesson in being able to speak in a language the other person can hear, or the situation can respond to in a constructive way. Everything the Emperor has to say or do may not... It's like medicine. Medicine may not taste good. But knowing the appropriate medicine for a situation is crucial. Stating the obvious or stating facts is not enough. All you're doing is stating the obvious and stating facts. Like, Beth, you do this all the time. You always do this. Stop being fucking crazy. Like, I'm stating observations, but I'm just throwing back at her what she already knows. Just throwing the obvious at somebody is rarely the way to open them up. And I mean, you can't fix other people. You don't have control over other people. You don't have complete control, or usually that much control, over situations at all. All you have is control over yourself. So, you might as well try to be the best self you can and govern your life and the people around you, govern situations through the filter of your best possible self. Which doesn't mean controlling everything else. It just means being the Emperor is a leader and a governor of themselves.
I would say also that the Emperor is ruled by Aries, which is a self. That's exactly what it's about, self-mastery. When you understand yourself, you can understand other people better. You can only really open up to someone as much as you're open. And if you are open to yourself in all ways and understand yourself in all ways, then you can understand other people even better.
The more familiar with yourself you are, and the more open with yourself you are, the more effectively you can speak to somebody in a language that they need to hear, not the language you want to speak in. Because it's not about the language which you use, it's about the language that they can hear. And your ability to speak in that language, the degree to which you can, starts and stops with your own openness with yourself.
Absolutely. It's like the best way to channel the Aries energy.
If only Aries were that awesome. So as you're all trapped together, dealing with your cosmic panic, and the energetic bombardment from your kids or your partner or
your objects,
your parents, your feelings, your feels, or, as you're sitting alone in a room surrounded by shadow, or you don't even have the lights on because it's all one big shadow. There's nothing to do and nowhere to go. Get in touch with who you are. Use this time to reflect and think about the way you want to be living, how you are going to commit, figure out what's your energy, what's somebody else's. Again, figure out who you are.
I think definitely taking this time at home is the first step to real growth and change in your life. I know everybody should at some degree want to change things about their life because it's all about progression. So wherever you identify these areas in your life that you really want to change, this is such a good time to really start that. It's spring. Spring's about to start. So plant those seeds, but start at home. Start with your ground. Start with your fertilizer. What's at your house? What's feeding you? Not just your food, but your food could even go into that.
I'm gonna start with their shit.
Start with your own shit. And start from the ground up, since you're stuck at home, since you're stuck with these close people and things around you, and shift them in ways that are going to be foundations for these changes that you're looking to do in your life. Might as well, you're stuck at home anyway.